All right, so just like I said, I'm going to take this. So I'm going to start with this example first, and then I'll dive into the second part of the 10.3 notes. So for this one, we have multiple. It's kind of like, two numbers, and then these two numbers here. Well, just imagine if you were doing something like this. Remember, you just take this number, distribute it to all of those two. Then you take that one, distribute it to those two. It's essentially the same idea what we're going to do here. We're going to take this, distribute it to all of the numbers over here. We're going to take this one, distribute it to all the numbers right here. So, first off, we start with 7, square root of 7 times square root of 7. And then we're going to have plus square root of 7 times negative 3 square root of 2. Plus square root of 2 times square root of 7. Plus square root of 2 times negative 3 square root of 2. Alright? So if we multiply these together, remember, square root of 7 times square root of 7. I'm just left with 7. Plus square root of 7 times negative 3 times the square root of 2. Take the inside. Multiply those together. The outside, you have negative 3 times the square root of 14. Right here, plus square root of 2 times square root of 7. That's just the square root of 14. You just multiply these two numbers together. And then these ones here, you take these inside numbers, multiply them together. But if you look, negative 3 square root of 2 times square root of 2. Remember, if you're multiplying these two numbers inside the radicals together, they're the same numbers. So all you're left with is now negative 3, kind of group these together, times 2. Because this is 2, and that's being multiplied to the negative 3. So it's negative 3 times 2, which you get negative 6. All right? And so from there, we can go ahead and start simplifying, adding all our like terms together. I have a 6 in this negative 7 and negative 6. That's going to give me 1. Negative 3 plus 4, negative 3 square root of 14 plus square root of 14. That's going to get me, well, they're the same thing. Just add the numbers out front. Negative 3 plus 1, that gets me negative 2 with the square root of 14, and then just plus that 1 there, okay? Alrighty. So, that's multiplying. Now let's do dividing, okay? Now, the quotient property of radicals, it's actually pretty cool, because what we can do here is, say if like for this one right here, square root of 4, square root of 9, you can actually split that apart as the square root of 4 over the square root of 9. And then you can just square root the tops and bottoms kind of independently. Square root of 4 is just going to be 2. Square root of 9 is just going to be 3. Okay, so that's how we can do that. Same for this one. You can set it up as the square root of 100 over the square root of 25. Square root of 100 is, remember, just 10. Square root of 25 is 5. 10 divided by 5. You get yourself 2, okay? So the quotient property, we use it quite a bit in order to, we're going to use it quite a bit in order to simplify these fractions out here, okay? So let's do this one, square root of 8 over square root of 49. Well, I know that the square root of 49 is 7, but the square root of 8, well, if I look at that, that's just going to be an ugly decimal, so I can't really do much with that. And if I look, now once I simplify that out, I have to see, well, can I potentially simplify that square root out? And as I see, the number 4 goes into 8, so what I can do is I can break 8 up as the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. That'll become 2 square root of 2 over 7. And then with these numbers out front now, I can treat them like a fraction and simplify it out. Unfortunately with this, 2 over 7, well, that really won't simplify out. So that's basically what I am left with, 2 square root of 2 over 7. 12 and 36, break this one apart. Square root of 12 over square root of 36. Square root of 36 is already 6. I'm going to break down the square root of 12. 1, 4, 9, and stop there. Numbers that divide out 12 is 4. I can split this up as square root of 4 times the square root of 3. The square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 3 just stays the same, so we're left with here square root of 2 over 3. Now, 2 over 6 as a fraction, I can simplify this down. I can divide both these by 2. So what you're left with is 2 divided by 2 on the top. So I'm going to divide both by 2. 2 divided by 2 on top is 1 with the square root of 3. Over 6 divided by 2 on bottom is just left with 3. And at this point, you don't even have to write the 1. You're just left with square root of 3 over 3. Okay? We can even do this with variables too. Take this, split it apart. Square root of 7 over square root of x squared. Remember, when you're doing x squared, it's an even exponent. Take the exponent, divide it by 2. You'll get x to the 1 power. So square root of x squared is just x. And then the square root of 7, well, I can't really simplify it with, 4 or 9 or any of those numbers. So that's all I can do with it. There's no numbers on the bottom to simplify it with, so we just leave it like that. The square root of 7 over x, okay? We'll take this one, split it apart. Square root of a cubed over square root of 121. I have an odd number here. It's not like this one where I have an even number. I have an odd number. So what I'm going to do, write out 3 a's. How many pairs of a's can I group together with just these 3? Well, I can make 1 pair of a's, and I'm left with 1 left over. So the way that I would simplify that out is a to the 1, because that's the number of pairs I have, times the square root of a, because that's what I'm left with inside, over, and then square root of 121, well, that's just 11, okay? Let me just do that right there. There's nothing more I can simplify with these. I can't simplify this a with this 11 or this square root of a, so I'm just left with that, okay? Alrighty, so now we're going to see what happens if I potentially can't simplify out the bottom to make it not a square root. Because again, one of our cardinal rules is I do not want a square root on the bottom of my fraction, okay? So what we do is we do something that we call rationalizing the denominator, all right? You are not allowed to have a radical in the denominator. That is a big no-no. So what you do, you basically take your radical and you multiply it on the top and bottom to your fraction. So for this one, I'm going to take the square root of 11. I'm going to multiply it to both the bottom and the top of the fraction, okay? And what that does is, well, 5 times... Because remember, our little rule there, square root of 11 times square root of 11, those go away, and I'm just left with 11. So if I simplify that out, square root of 5 times the square root of 11 over 11. I can't simplify 5 over 11 any further, and the square root of 11, well, that can't simplify it any further, so that's what I'm left with, okay? So we do the same with this one. It's 1 over square root of 2x. The 2x, I can't simplify that out at all. 2x, can't do anything with those. So I'm going to multiply on the top and on the bottom by the square root of 2x. Square root of 2x times 1, well, that just leaves me with the square root of 2x. And remember, square root of 2x times square root of 2x, I'm just left with 2x. And I can't do anything more with this. I cannot simplify these even though, hey, 2x, I can't simplify those because this one right here is underneath the square root. If it's underneath the square root, you got to think it's underneath its house. It's kind of a dumb analogy, but it's underneath its house. And it can't do anything with the 1 on the bottom until it comes out of its house. All right? So this right here is what it is. All right? So we're just left with that. All righty, so how many more I got here? I just got a couple more examples here. So let's go ahead and rationalize these ones here. So I'm left with 4 times the square root of 4 over square root of 6. Square root of 6 is not going to be able to simplify out any further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply, make sure I got this all here, by the square root of 6, by the square root of 6. 4 times the square root of 6, well, you just write 4 square root of 6. 6 times square root of 6 times square root of 6 is just 6. We have these numbers on the tops and bottoms, 4 over 6. We can divide both those by 2. Because this 4 is now on the outside of the house, the 6 is now underneath the house, so we can work with those. 4 over 6, we're left with 2 square root of 3 over 3. And I cannot simplify these square roots of 3's and 3 right there, okay? Alrighty. Square root of 7 over square root of 2. Square root of 2 will not simplify any further, so I will multiply on the top and on the bottom by that square root of 2. Square root of 7 times the square root of 2. Well, write a square root. 7 times 2 equals 14, so I'm going to put that 14 underneath the square root. Over, well, that'll just become 2, so it'll just become square root of 14 over 2. All right, square root of 14 divided by 2. Can't do anything with that square root of 14. Can't do anything with that 2. That's all I got. Now we got a little bit of, so now we're going to kind of put it all together here. So I have square root of 1, again, square root of a whole fraction. I'm just going to split it up. Square root of 1 over the square root of 27. I'm left with 1 over square root of 27. Now, let's see if we can simplify that a little bit further. Square root of 27. So I have 4, 9, 16, 25. That's all I can use. The only number that will divide 27 out will be 9. So I can split the 27 up. Square root of 9 times the square root of 3. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 3 will just stay there. So I'm left with 1 over 3 times the square root of 3. But that's not really good enough for me. I still need to get rid of that square root there. So now what I can do is I can rationalize by just multiplying by that square root of 3 right there. All right, I'll just multiply by the square root of 3. Because if you do that, on the top, you're left with the square root of 3 over 3. If you multiply those together, you get the square root of 9. But remember, it also is the same as our little trick there. It's the same as 3. So you're left with square root of 3 over 3 times 3, which is the same as square root of 3 over 9. I can't simplify out the square root of 3 anymore. The 9 doesn't have any numbers up top to simplify with. So I just leave it as square root of 3 over 9. Square root of 3 over 9. So if we go to this one right here, I got 5 over 3 times square root of 2. So I've kind of say like I've already started this, and I get to this point here. Well, I can't have that square root in the denominator anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by that square root. So I'm just going to do 2 on top, 2 on bottom. 5 square root of 2, that'll just stay as, well, 5 square root of 2. Over 3, and then square root of 2 times square root of 2. Remember, the square roots go away, and I'm just left with 2. I multiply 3 times 2 out, I get 6. 5 times square root of 2 over 6. I can't simplify the 5 over 6 as a fraction, so I just leave it. Square root of 2 cannot do anything more with that. Don't simplify it with the, do not simplify it with the square with the 6 on the bottom. We just leave it like that. That's it. Alrighty, so that will be it for the 10.3 notes. I think we have one more section after this. That's going to be 10.4. We will pick these up in the next video series. Thank you guys for watching, and be on the lookout for these notes. Thank you.